So far, we've learned about some of the most important text elements. Now, we'll start looking at more specific text elements that can help you format things like quotes from a book or a movie. First up is the block quote element. The block quote or block quote tag is used to wrap quotes. So let's go ahead and try it out. Like I said, the element and tag are both called block quote. So we'll go ahead and type out the full word block quote inside of our angle brackets. And then we can go ahead and close it by typing block quote again. Inside of our block quote, we want to use a paragraph tag because we're going to be wrapping some text that happens to be a quote. So we'll just say, the quick brown fox jumped over the lazy dog. Then the dog chased after the fox. So there's our quote. And if we switch over to the browser, and if we go back and refresh the page, you can see that we now have a quote on our web page. And if you'll also notice, there's a little bit of indentation here from where the text would normally appear. That's because this text is inside of a block quote. Next, we're going to learn about the cite attribute, which is used for citations if we want to say who the quote is from. Citations must be a URL. So let's go inside of our block quote here and use the cite attribute. And then inside of these double quotes, we'll put a URL. So we'll say this is just from example.com/story.html. And this quote is a quote from this URL. So if we go back and refresh the page, you'll notice that nothing has really changed, but semantically in the markup, we now have a citation for this quote. And if you wanted to, you could display the citation using CSS, but we don't need to. Next up is the Q element, or Q tag, or quote tag. The Q element is related to the block quote element. It's used for inline content that doesn't require paragraph breaks, whereas the block quote is used for block level content that does require paragraph breaks. So what do I mean by that? Well, let's go ahead and try it out. After our block quote, we'll go ahead and skip down a little bit, and we'll create a new paragraph that's outside of the block quote tag. So we'll create a paragraph, and we'll go ahead and type in, a wise man once said, then with the Q tag, I think, therefore I am. And then we'll close the quote tag or Q tag. So let's go ahead and switch back to the browser and refresh the page. And let's take a look at this paragraph that we now have with a quote inside of it. The paragraph is not inside of a block quote element, so you'll notice that it is not indented by default, whereas the block quote is. However, with the Q element, we have quotes around our inline quote inside of this paragraph. There's no need for us to add these quotes in ourselves because they're added automatically by the browser. Now, just like the block quote tag, we can also add a citation to the Q tag. So let's go ahead and switch back to our text editor. And inside of the Q tag, we'll go ahead and add a cite attribute. And just like the cite attribute for the block quote, the cite attribute for the Q element needs to be a URL. So we'll say this is from example.com/philosophy.html. So we'll go ahead and save that. And if we switch back to the browser and refresh the page, you'll notice that just like the block quote, nothing has actually changed, but semantically, we have that citation in the markup, and we could even display it to the user should we want to.
Quoting other works in a web page isn't something that comes up terribly often, but when it does, it's important to use the proper elements to add more semantic meaning to your page.